we've always felt that Vanguard Cave, which had been sealed long before any of us went down to the cave, about 40,000 years ago, that it continued much further and much deeper than we had originally thought. But this was something that it was only speculation. We never really could prove it, and there's no way. People used to ask us, can't you take radar pictures with it or something? The fact is, it's very difficult to do that kind of thing. So what we set ourselves to do was to systematically excavate at its own pace and just work our way in. And then finally, earlier this year, we got to a point where we could see that it was beginning to open up a bit. And so what we found is that the cave does indeed carry on. We found at least 13 meters of a gallery, which hasn't been open to the outside world for over 42,000 years.
I have to ask you, how excited are you about this discovery?
It's difficult to describe into words because I know that some people might think, oh, it's only that, but for us it's such an incredible opportunity because we're going to be able to go into, it's like walking into a ready-made laboratory. Nobody, no human has touched it for 42,000 years. So it's completely untouched. So I can't be more excited.
So excavation hasn't really started yet, but what have you learned so far about this cave?
It's amazing how much information we've got just from the first few minutes of being in the inside of the cave. Our geomorphologist has been able to interpret what he saw, and one of the first things that struck us was we found some pebbles. Now, pebbles are rounded by the action of the sea churning them around. They get rounded by the action, the erosion, if you like. And we found pebbles up there. And so, for me, I thought, what on earth are pebbles doing up here? Who brought them up here? Because how would they get here otherwise? And we were talking of, quite a 20-something meters above sea level at the moment. So what he's been able to already tell us is how the genesis or the way that the cave was created, you can be read in what we find there. And what's happened is when tectonically Gibraltar was a little bit lower than it is today at whatever the sea level would have been then, and the cave was being formed, the waves were dragging in all these pebbles, and these pebbles were being sort of cemented onto the side of the cave. Then as Africa pushed into Europe and Gibraltar rose tectonically, I'm talking of over hundreds of thousands of years, and then as sea levels maybe went down a bit, these accretions or cementations of these pebbles were lifted up with them. And this is what we found, because over the years some of those had dropped onto the new floor of the cave. So already we're beginning to learn about how the cave has been formed, and it tells us that it's very similar to the formation or the way that Gorham's Cave was formed. So we're learning immense things, because for once it's not just a hypothesis that's difficult to test. Here we've got a hypothesis and we can test it because we know nobody's been in there to change it. So we know exactly what's been happening.
And the archaeologists also spoke of an earthquake, a significant earthquake 4,200 years ago?
That's right. This evidence is coming through readily in many other caves in Gibraltar, and there's evidence of a very massive earthquake. He's today said 4,200 years. That's the first I'd heard of it, so I'm doubly excited now.
Okay, when are you actually going to start the whole process of excavating, and do you think that there will be international interest? Will other archaeologists want to come over and have a look as well?
We now have to plan things very carefully. There's a huge responsibility attached to the fact that this is a pristine cave that no one's touched before. So before we do anything in that cave, we will have to plan it out very carefully, and then we have committees that we refer to, other scientists that we consult with, just to make sure that there's only one opportunity that you get to do it right the first time, and we're going to do it right the first time. So I can't give you a time scale. I know that it will be soon, in the sense that maybe within the next year, but I can't tell you exactly when we'll start. But we'll start when we're ready, and we'll proceed at the speed that the cave tells us. So if it gets very complicated, we'll go slowly. If it's a bit simpler, we might go a bit faster. As for international importance, well, I think this is an opportunity that many other scientists are going to be interested in taking part with us. Because, again, it's pristine and untouched, but it gives us opportunities, for example, just off the top of my head, not because, we're planning it particularly, but if somebody wants to check if there's any DNA, ancient DNA in there, well, nothing's touched this cave, so this would be a perfect opportunity to do that. So we're going to have interest from many fields.
And Geraldine, one final question, just to put it in a bit of perspective. How often are these types of caverns or caves that have been untouched for so long, how often are they discovered in Europe?
Not that often. I mean, you sometimes come across a cave that hasn't been seen recently, but then you go in and you find there's evidence of people having gone in there, or animals. Now, the difference with this cave is no animals, at least no vertebrates. Maybe an insect found its way in there. We don't know, we haven't seen them, but certainly no mammals have gone into that cave. So those are quite, I'm not going to say that it's exceptional, but they're not that common. It's not such a common occurrence. But to find one within an excavation cave, then that is really very, very unique.